You know, it's funny. I've done 31 replay commentaries on Rome 2, and none of them have been with the Iceni tribe. So this is going to be a first for me. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how this faction slipped through the cracks, because I do play them. Not a lot, but I've played a decent amount of battles with them, and I have done live commentaries with them, but I've never actually done a replay cast with them, which is weird to me. But here we are on Pyramids map, doing a 2v2 with Pictish Warlord on Parthia as my ally, and Suicidal and Happy Souls from the FG clan are going to be our opponents for today. They will be Sparta and Carthage, and I'm going to be rushing with the Iceni. As you guys know, Iceni have a very potent rushing capability. They're a lot like Arverni in that aspect. The Heroic Nobles, very similar to Oathsworn. Heavy sword rushes are typically what you're going to see with them. They have garbage skirmishers, so I actually didn't bring any in this game whatsoever. I brought 2 Druidic Nobles, which I think are a really cool, unique unit for the Iceni. They're not amazing in melee, although they are actually pretty good for a sword unit. They just have less men in the unit, so not quite as effective as some other swords, but they do have Chant, which keeps your guys in the fight for a very long time, gives you a lot of morale, and it just helps you stay in the fight and kind of win melee grinded out fest. So I really like bringing them. Typically I like to deploy one on each flank. I don't remember if I do that this battle, but the idea behind that being that you want that Chant, which is basically another rally. You want that on each flank just in case wavering occurs or you need better morale. You can pop it on both sides without wasting a Chant, basically. So also have 4 veteran riders here. Just going to be doing a little bit of testing here with the Carthaginian mercenary Iberian cavalry. He actually didn't bring any elephants this game, which I think I said something about like it'd be great to play a game without elephants, and then he decided to pick Carthage anyway. He could have brought elephants if he wanted, obviously. I didn't make any rules about it, but I think we all agreed not to bring any Ellies, which is nice, because I mean, you see Ellies and chariots a lot, and yeah, they can be countered. They can definitely be countered. But you know what? Seeing elephants in every game is just annoying, and sometimes you just don't want to deal with it. So he brought Carthage regardless, and he has 3 African pikemen in the front. And as you guys know, I really love the challenge of trying to break down pike boxes with sword rush armies. You saw me do it against Prince of Macedon. You've seen me do it a decent amount. I love the challenge of just trying to open up the puzzle, outflank my opponent, and just try to outmaneuver their pikes. I really like that a lot. So I'm going to be trying to do that this battle. One thing that was very interesting was I thought this late Carthaginian hoplite was a pike unit. The entire battle. I treated it like a pike unit because it was really spread out a lot like his pikes were, and he put it on his flank. I just thought it was a pike. And so you're going to see the way I engage against it is treating it like a pike unit. So that was funny and kind of interesting. Now, one thing that, and I'm going to put it in slow motion just to explain this, Balearic slingers and slingers in general, I think recently have gotten kind of nerfed. They just don't seem to have the killing power that they once did, and certainly if they shoot for a very long time, they can still get very good kill rates, but I don't think they have the armor piercing or the killing potential that they used to. And one thing that I think would have really benefited him here is if he had brought Cretan archers or jabs instead, because my entire game plan here is to try to outflank his pikes, and if there were units that were capable of killing my swords very, very quickly, I would have been forced to rush into engaging the pikes and make mistakes. And instead, I get to have more time to engage and more time to think about how I'm going to outflank his pikes. And during that time, his skirmishers aren't going to do much. I think if he had Cretans or something like that, I think he would have had a better chance of killing a lot of my swords and punishing, as we're going to catch a beheading here. I think he would have had a better chance of punishing my sword units and doing a lot of damage to them as I danced around trying not to engage the pikes from the front. He spread them out really thin, which I think in some ways was really good because it made me have to try to outflank them, and it made me have to cover more ground. But the problem with that is that I had enough time to outflank them because of the fact that he didn't bring really great skirmishers. And again, Balearic slingers are considered elite tier slingers, but I just don't think they have the armor piercing to kill the heavy swords that I brought. So I managed to get my cavalry all the way around the flank, and we're kind of just engaging in a little bit of a blob here. And one thing that he did really well this battle was he kept his Libyan infantry in reserve, and then used them to protect his pike's flanks, which is really important. Pikes get outflanked really easily if you don't back them up, and he backed them up really well. So every time I tried to flank one of his pikes, he would do a good job of committing his Libyan infantry. Of course, he doesn't have infinite Libyan infantry, so there's going to be a time where it runs out. And right here, he got overzealous. He tried to chase some of my swords. I ran them away, and then I'm going to quickly collapse in and completely surround it, which was really important here because it's a full strength unit, and I just completely isolated it, and it's going to allow me to completely wipe it off the field basically right off the bat and barely lose any men. So this was a pretty good play for me. I was happy about this. Going to get rid of a full strength Libyan infantry unit for free, and I'm going to cut them down real quick. In other parts of the line, he's kind of won in the middle here, but again, a lot of my swords are concentrated over on that left flank, and I'm actually engaging some of his Libyan infantry over on this side as well. Parthia had a hard time with Sparta, but we kind of double-teamed Carthage. He sent me a lot of his cav, so it was kind of like he just wanted to make sure that we killed Carthage, and then we could focus more on Sparta. But he has lost a lot of guys in his engagement as well. We're just not going to focus on that too much. We're going to focus on my side. So some of my guys are wavering here, and soon I'm going to pop the chant, or the rally, whatever the rally skill is with the Druidic Nobles. That'll keep my guys in the fight a little bit longer, and then I'll be able to collapse in on these Libyan infantry and these pikes. And yeah, I'll get a complete surround off actually with this Heroic Noble. They're going to throw their jabs in. Really good jab throw. Couple on that guy's head. And just commit into melee, and he's going to rout over on this flank. So I think I did a really good job of breaking down those pikes. The African pikemen are not the best pike unit in the game by any means, but I think the mid-tier pikes at this point are a much better investment than the high-tier pikes. If you just go with pikemen or the African pikemen, those kind of units that cost like 700 to 800 talents, I think are a much better option than some of the other pikes in the game, like the Hellenic Royal Guard and the Foot Companions. I think they're just too expensive now at this point. So I wrapped up Carthage with the help of Parthia, of course. That was big for us. Sparta has most of his units left. There's going to be a nice little micro here. This was a really good idea from Pictish Warlord. He's going to bring his Noble Blood Cav and try to get around these pikes and get them right through and get them directly into these mercenary Rhodian slingers. Now the problem is that they're unsupported, and then Sparta's going to turn his Peltas around. So these cav units are going to die very quickly and not going to get to be able to do as much damage as I'm sure he would have liked for them to. But they did get to kill a skirmish unit. That was big. And over on this side, we tried to catch out these Royal Spartans and the Spartan Hoplite. What I wanted him to do was turn around and face my sword so that then the cataphracts would come in from behind, but Pictish is going to commit anyway and try to tie them down. This cataphract unit was basically dead anyway. So he's going to tie him down, and then my Heroic Nobles are going to get into melee here. But of course Sparta's not going to let that happen for too long. He realizes that these Spartan Hoplites will lose in a prolonged engagement with heavy swords. So he's going to run away. And it's going to come down to trying to surround these pikemen and these hoplites of Sparta. The balance bar is a little bit in our favor, but it's still very close. And Sparta, honestly, their units, they just last for forever. Really high armor, really high melee defense. It's going to be hard to cut through all of them, and we're going to have to be very careful on how we engage. Because if I hit the front of these pikes, or the front of hoplites and hoplite wall, I'm just not going to be able to break through them very easily. And a lot of my guys are exhausted because they've been fighting for so long, and then I had to run them across the map to get over at Sparta as well. So they're tired, and when you have tired troops, that's when mass routs can occur. So I have to be very careful on how I engage here. I did notice that late Carthaginian hoplite was wavering, so he's going to put that into square formation, and then I'm just going to quickly charge it. I know I can kill them very easily with Druidic Nobles and Heroic Swords, so I'm just going to commit right here. And they're going to get hit in the face with some jabs, and then swords right into melee combat. I really love how the Iceni look. They're definitely one of the coolest looking factions in the game. Very unique looking. Their shields and just the details on these units I think are really cool and very unique. So yeah, I'm going to commit into this Carthaginian hoplite right here. Should be able to cut them down. And then this is where the engagement really gets going here. is over on this side he's going to have some of his Royal Spartans, and I'm going to get a hammer and anvil off with the veteran riders, try to surround them, but they're just high armor, high morale, super heavy spear infantry, so they're going to just tank and do a lot of damage in this fight. That's Prussian Prince messaging me. Hopefully he doesn't message too many times. I'll respond after this replay. So yeah, it's just Spartans in melee, like even against heroic swords or heroic nobles, very hard to cut through them. They just have really high morale, hard to cut through. One thing you're going to notice right here is I committed 2 of my chosen spear band just to focus these pikes. If these pikes were in the melee fight right now, it would be scary for me, because they can cut through swords if they're tied down, but I baited these pikes out and made him face them. He had to focus on them because if he turned his back, I could just charge him in the rear. So he had to face that way, and I basically, for nothing, for spear units that couldn't even cut through hoplites anyway, I'm holding down 2 pike units, which could have been his savior in this battle. Over on this side, some Parthian swordsmen and my chosen swordsman are trying to cut through these hoplites, but we did attack them from the front, and I believe they were in hoplite wall. So cutting through them again is very difficult. And we're starting to waver over here. This is really scary. Like, this is getting really, really close. Now this unit right here, these Royal Spartans, the general unit that he had, gonna get an insane amount of kills. And it was crazy because we did a pretty good job of surrounding them. I am blobby here, but I'm gonna notice it and pull some of my units out and then reform. But here's where what I did with the spears was really smart. He's going to try to encircle me with the pikes and get them in the melee, but as soon as he does that, I realize it and then get my spears to attack his pike in the rear. So as soon as he focused on something other than the spear, I'm going to collapse in and kill it fairly easily. But the Royal Spartans are still tanking. They've got almost 200 kills at this point, and my guys are so tired that they're just really able to cut through them pretty easily. That 95 armor and 71 melee defense is really taking its toll. And again, they have the same attack value. Actually, they have higher attack value than heroic noble swords. So, not an easy unit to kill by any stretch of the imagination. Over on this side, it looks like we're finally going to win this flank. He's committing some more of his hoplites and pike units, but we should be able to surround them and cut those off. And the balance bar has officially shifted in our favor, and it's looking pretty good for us at this point. Got a rear charge off with the Druidic Nobles over here on the Royal Spartans, and this is going to spell the end for them. They're going to fight for even longer, but with their 205 kills, I mean, they're surrounded at this point, and they're just going to start getting worn down very, very slowly, but they're still going to die. So yeah, with these Spartan Nobles, one thing that's really important that you have to do if you want to kill them is surround them, and preferably cycle charge, either with infantry or with cavalry from the rear. Otherwise, you just don't kill a lot in melee. They just fight for so long, and they have such good morale. But finally we routed them, and this pike unit right here is probably going to be the last unit we kill. I think Sparta has actually gotten, I mean, certainly, and this was a couple patches ago, or a while ago, but when Spartan hoplites got buffed and when Royal Spartans got buffed, Sparta got buffed a lot. They're really hard to kill. Like, I don't think there's a faction in the game that's like takes so much effort to surround and murder, just because they all have such high morale, high armor. They're a pretty good faction now, honestly. That was sweet. A lot of good close-ups in this battle. So yeah, my Iceni rush ended up working out in tandem with Parthia. I think that's really strong. A heavy sword rush with heavy cav build, double teaming an opponent. Very efficient, very effective in most cases. Parthia matches up pretty horribly, I think, versus Sparta, just because they have so many cheap spears that are high armor and can, one, withstand javelin or archer shots, and two, withstand the charges from cataphracts. But because we were able to kind of double team Carthage at the beginning there, we had enough units left over that cutting through Sparta was doable, albeit extremely difficult. So what I think Suicide, who was Carthage, could have done a little bit differently was bring something that weren't Valeric Slingers. These guys had all the time in the world to shoot. Now, I don't remember if we actually flanked our cav and killed his slingers. I think we did, but that was a little bit later on in the battle. They shot for a while. They shot a good 6-7 volleys at least, and they only had like 20 kills each. I think if he had Cretans or Jabs, he could have shredded my swords as I tried to flank around his pikes, and that would have made it a lot harder for me to win as convincingly as I did over on that flank. For Happy Souls, I think he played really well. His Rhodians got a lot of kills. Well, some of his Rhodians got a lot of kills. Royal Spartans, 220 kills and 113. Look at these stats on these Spartan hoplites, like 175 kills, 100 kills. They don't cost very much, and they can do a lot of killing if you engage them from the front. So, very hard to kill him. I think his army setup was really good. He didn't bring a lot of cav, which again I don't think you should do as Sparta. And so that made cutting through all those high armor hoplites very difficult. My dogs didn't do a whole lot in that battle, unfortunately, and I actually didn't even show them in the battle at all. But my swords, very strong. Most of them were over 100 kills. And my Druidic Nobles helped out a lot as well. Kept me in the fight for longer than I probably should have been. His Cataphracts did very well. Actually, all of his cav did really well. Overall, really fun battle. I thought there was a lot of tactics, strategy that went into it. A lot of surrounding. Of course, Iceni is a rush army, and I did my best to just completely surround my opponent and overwhelm them with swords, but I think they reacted fairly well. And for getting double teamed, I think Suicidal played pretty well. He certainly, like, looking at stats, you're like, oh wow, that's trash, like he didn't do well at all. But considering what he had to deal with, and the fact that Sparta's just not good at reinforcing allies, because they're all infantry, like he doesn't have any good cav to send over to help out, I think Suicidal did okay. Yeah, I think Sparta is, I guess I'll end this replay with that discussion. I think Sparta is much more of a 1v1 faction. Like, you pick them against a cav faction like Parthia in a 1v1, you should probably win that match, no matter what. Well, maybe not no matter what, but you should probably win that matchup. But in a 2v2, I don't think they're very good. Or, they can be very good, but they're not good at reinforcing their allies. So, if you can try to double team whoever isn't Sparta, you're probably going to be in good shape because they're not going to bring a lot of cav, and they're going to have to take a long time to send units over. And he did send some Royal Spartans, but they just didn't make it in time. And Carthage just died before Sparta was able to reinforce. So I hope you guys enjoyed that battle. A lot of really good close-ups in that one. Really enjoyed it. And there was actually another 2v2 with the FG clan that we played, so I'll probably cast that one as well. And if you guys have any requests for multiplayer factions you want me to try out, feel free to leave those in the comment section below. And otherwise, I will talk to you all later. Indie Pride signing out.